I'm Master Saturn. Thank you for joining me for another BDSM United podcast as we go through some BDSM horror stories, trying to give you advice how to not have a horror story of your own. It's been chilly the last few days on my part of the planet. I have a big cup of coffee. I take a sip there, and I thought that maybe a way to warm us up a little was looking at a few really terrible sex stories, just encounters that people had, and maybe we'll try to break them down and, try to understand how we could, how they could have been done better, how they could have been avoided, if they could have been avoided, what are some things we could do to make sure these kinds of things don't happen to us. I went through several of them on our last podcast, and then I had one that I was gonna share, but it was just too juicy, too good, and so I had to save it for this time. So I am quoting some other people. It won't often match my gender, but So here's one from a woman who was dating someone in a different country. A few years ago, my French boyfriend at the time took me to Paris to meet his family. His mother, a haughty woman who believes that her only son is God and that no girl could possibly be classy enough to deserve him. Their regard was mutual because he worshipped her just as much as she worshipped him. One evening after a champagne-soaked dinner, she left to go to the theater. Expecting that she'd be gone for several hours, we started having regular sex, and then anal sex on a couch adjacent to the table at which we'd had dinner. Things kept getting hotter, and my boyfriend started fucking my ass with the slim end of a champagne bottle. This felt good at first, but then I realized that something felt a little off in my body. I slowed him down in an attempt to understand what on earth was my body was doing, and I realized that my bowels were beginning to move. And I kind of realized that it was too late to stop what was happening. At this terrible moment, we hear a key in the door, and his mother pops into the room. She'd forgotten her shawl or something, and so there I am, naked on her couch, while her son, also naked, is holding a champagne bottle that is obviously deeply embedded in my ass. We shriek. He yanks out the bottle, and immediately out comes a large, dark brown, smelly piece of shit. It just rolls out. This felt like it was happening in slow motion, and I kept trying to stop it, but I couldn't. The poop rolls out and lands on her couch. This French boy and I broke up shortly thereafter. I dumped him. Pun intended. Oh, man. Yeah, you definitely want to make sure that you're in sometimes kinky things can just kind of happen spontaneously. They can be hot in the moment. But, move it to a space where you're not going to, get caught. You're not going to get walked in on that, especially if you're doing something a little kinky, a little out of the ordinary. You're using some object, like a champagne bottle, a big dildo or something else. You're using something that, you definitely want to have some privacy. And so, put yourself in a location you can, make it sexy and be like, yeah, let's go to your bedroom, or let's go to the back bedroom, and we can really get hot. You can, that wasn't super sexy the way I said that, but you can try to say it in a sexy way to where it doesn't disrupt the hotness of the scene. And move, where it starts doesn't mean where it has to end. So move the scene to a different location, and communication starts to happen. So when you start to feel something off, That's why in BDSM we have we have safe words. A lot of people use the green, yellow, excuse me, green, yellow, and red safe words. And this would be a good time to yellow. It's like yellow, let's stop the scene. Yellow isn't stopping everything, isn't stopping it all, but yellow is, hey, I need a little break. I need to go use the bathroom. My body's starting to, you know, something's starting to happen with my body. Or, hey, before you pull out the bottle, get a towel. My body, my bowels are starting to move, or my body's starting to react to the bottle, and I just need a towel. And then politely excuse yourself while you go clean yourself up, and just switch up the scene, try something different, finish him off in a different way, or something like that. So there's sometimes you just can't help what happens, and sometimes things just happen, but you can help, that where a scene starts, if it starts spontaneously in a moment, you can help to pause for a brief moment and move it in a sexy way to a more private location. Here's another one. The fact that he was a grown man who still called himself Timmy should have tipped me off that this wasn't going to be the most satisfying experience. So Timmy was a fairly sweet, if dim guy, and before we had sex, he told me he'd had sex with a few girls, but only one time each, and he didn't know why. Obviously, red flag. I was all, that's so weird. You're totally cute. Let's have sex twice today. Oh, yeah, you see the red flags, but you're totally going to change him. Okay. Let's see how this works out for you. Half an hour into fooling around, I figured it out. Not only did he not get hard at all, it seems that no one had ever told him that you need to, in fact, be erect before trying to penetrate a woman. He kept holding his tiny, limp dick and trying to kind of just flop it inside me, I guess. I tried my very best to erectify the situation and get things really going, but he kept saying, "What's wrong? Why won't you just put it inside you?" So I just sort of shoved his flaccid penis inside me, and he started to moan like it was feeling really good for him. Then it promptly just fell out. I remember how sad and floppy it looked lying against his leg, and then how pitiful the whole effort was as he started to rock against me, gently thwacking his droopy penis between my legs as though I must be the luckiest girl in the world. Needless to say, we didn't have sex more than the one time. I wonder if since he's broken that streak, you gotta be, you're totally empathetic for someone, but they, sometimes you got to, be the educator. So when something is not going, it's like, hey, this is supposed to be this way. This is supposed to be done this way or that way. You got to sometimes be the educator. You got to sometimes, tell somebody something that is, something that they don't want to hear, don't know that they need to hear. But you got to say, that's not how this, I know that you've had some experience, but that's not how this works. And, if someone's body is, if somebody can't get hard, they have an erectile dysfunction, then, that they may need to see a doctor, or, they may need to try some type of medication to help assist them. And you definitely don't want to shame anyone for that. That's not something shameful. It's just, sometimes a condition, either based on medication, based on anatomy, based on physiology, just based on surgeries that someone has had or injuries that they've had. There's a lot of different things that can cause an erectile dysfunction. And so, but you definitely, if someone has that dysfunction, you want to be empathetic. You want to help try to educate them if they don't know any better. And you want to give them a way out. Just be like, let's try something different. Let them finger you, or let them jack you off, or let them do something to you that is pleasing and sexual, and then give them an opportunity, give them an out, and give them an opportunity to participate, but then get them help them get medical help if they need it, or any kind of help that they need it. And so sometimes you got to be the educator. Here's a more kinky one that fits our podcast a little better. I had finally agreed to a threesome with the man I had been involved in a dominant, submissive, friends with benefits situation for the last 4 months. Since this was largely my fantasy that he wanted to fulfill, oh yeah, sure, it was all him, huh? It was going to be a male, female threesome. I was nervous, to say the least. He had agreed to write up an ad for Craigslist. I can see it going downhill here. Let me review it before posting and screen all the responses. We finally settled on one, not my first choice or even my second, but he actually followed through. I knew that if I could see what was going on, I wouldn't go through with it. So he agreed that I would be blindfolded. Oh my God, this huge red flags here. And he would take care of me, gauging the situation and making sure the guest didn't overstep my limits. I was kneeling, blindfolded, in the middle of the living room when the doorbell rang. It didn't take long before this guest was naked and in my mouth. Nor did it take long after we rolled around a little bit and had changed positions that I started feeling little feather brushes against my arms. For the life of me, I couldn't figure out what the feeling was. They were without pattern but distinct and localized sensations against my skin. It wasn't until I started feeling them on my face that I was essentially teabagging him that I realized that he was sweating on me. The guest this man had just met in the loosest of terms wasn't simply sweating. He was sweating large, gross, hairy man sweat droppings all over my face and torso. That should have been my clue to stop, but I'm a trooper and a bit loath to cause a scene. Besides, my man was there. I knew I was safe, and he and I were having fun. Fast forward to the end of the afternoon. I'm on the floor on my back after my man and I finish fucking, kind of spent from all the activities, but still blindfolded. I can feel the guest's hands on me, and he asks if he can get me off again. No, not one to say no to an orgasm. He started attending to me digitally, but then diligently, but then the sensation changes. It feels as if he's trying to fist me, but with his palm or something. The feeling is off, and then it hits me. The guest is an amputee, and he was trying to fist me with his stump. I don't go for fisting to begin with, but trying to fist his stump in my vagina just wasn't going to happen. So I stop the scene, he leaves, and I go to the bathroom to clean up. When I come out, I turn to my man and ask, was he missing a hand? Yes, he was. I didn't think it would be polite to turn him away just because of it, though. That's true, but Stumpy tried to fist me with his stump. Without asking, he tried to fist me. That would have been bad enough, but stumping without permission is just poor form. I can't shame a man, really, for the way that he is. You're not obligated to play with anyone if there's anything that you don't like about them, but you wouldn't know because you blindfolded yourself on a first meet with a stranger. Just so many red flags here. Friends with benefits for 4 months. Yeah, that can be enough time to build some trust with someone. But going blindfolded with somebody you met off a wanted ad, whether it was Craigslist or FetLife or any of it, you know, settling on someone, without meeting them, vetting them, going out to dinner with them, all three of you going out to dinner together, getting to know the person, going on a first date just to see, just this whole stranger thing. I think a lot of people see it as a fantasy, and they see people on these sites that appear to be doing it. But oftentimes, what you don't know is that some of the content on there is for entertainment purposes only. Some of the content where somebody says this, they're meeting a stranger in a hotel room, it's not a real stranger. It's their boyfriend, or their boyfriend dressed a little differently or looking a little differently. And they're role playing a scene with a stranger and taking pictures and telling you a tall tale, telling you a story for your entertainment and for their entertainment as well. Because oftentimes they have in OnlyFans or something else. And if they think that you meet with strangers, then that's an incentive for you to, if you think if you subscribe to their content, you may be the next random stranger that you may be able to actually have a chance to get with this person. And, so they have told you a tall tale for entertainment purposes only, kind of leading you on a little bit to try to get a little bit of cash out of your wallet. And, because porn is entertainment, it is fantasy, there really isn't anything ethically wrong with that. Although, just like how an ad is, how, when we use an affiliate link somewhere, we disclose that. It would be nice if they disclosed the nature of some of these things, because they're, at least somewhere disclose some of it, that I don't meet with strangers. This is for entertainment purposes only. This is staged content, that kind of thing. But more times than not, it's not real. It's a fantasy, whether you know it or not. Here's one that has to do with blood. I was manually prepping him and thought it was weird that there was so much pre-cum. Eventually, I flicked on the light to grab a condom, and he said, "Oh my God, you're bleeding." I started freaking out. How could this be? I just got off my period. My hands, stomach, and thighs were covered in blood, but neither region was clear. Then I took over and I see blood literally gushing out of the head of his dick. I was so freaked out, I yelled, "Your dick is bleeding," and ran out of the room. He was more mortified than I was, if that was even possible. He told me about a month ago he was really wasted and zipped the head of his penis in his pants. Being super drunk, he couldn't dislodge it, so he forced the zipper down and yanked his dick out. He then passed out to later find himself on a blood-soaked mattress. The doctor told him he needed stitch to close it back up, but didn't do it, leaving both his penis and me scarred for life. Yeah, you got to you got to have good self-care. You got to take good care of yourself. And if you have an open wound, that's definitely something, or a scar that can open itself up with a little bit of friction. You can put yourself and your potential partner at some risk. So you definitely want to, this is a good discussion to have about fluid exchange and being fluid bonded with others. Oftentimes there's this whole emphasis on going raw or going without a condom with different people and just checking some kind of status with them, like checking that they have a paper that said that they're clean. And, what you're not realizing is that with every new partner that you're with, you are putting them at risk, because they don't know the status of all of the different people that you had been with unprotected. And so you definitely want to minimize the amount of people that you're fluid bonded with, if possible, just, because the next person that you're with, doesn't get to know about the person that you were just with. Does that make sense? And so we just, if you pass, you could be, and let me put it another way, during COVID times, sometimes somebody would be non-symptomatic and they would be a carrier and they would pass along COVID virus to someone else who they themselves may not be symptomatic. And so then they pass it on to a third person who then has a huge, has all the symptoms and ends up hospitalized. And so we protected other people by putting masks on and by social distancing, by washing our hands regularly, just some basic things. Because if I don't have symptoms and I don't know that I have COVID, or maybe I've tested and I don't show positive on the test that they have, and I give COVID to somebody else, they too may not have symptoms at all. But then when they go and they don't know that they have it and they give it to a third person, well, the third person really got it from the first person. If the first person had been wearing a mask, social distancing, then possibly they wouldn't have passed the virus along to the second intermediate person. And so you could be that intermediate person. So it's a good idea to minimize being fluid bonded with people that you don't know, that you don't have a history with. So just something to think about. Here's our last one for today. This person says, as a freshman in college, I decided to nurse the wounds of a bad breakup with a one-night stand. I should have run in the other direction when the guy told me he was working on his memoirs and he was only 19. But I was pretty desperate. The sex itself was awkward, passionless, and boring, but the real treat came the next day. I arrived back to my dorm room in last night's clothes, and I was changing to head to the showers when my roommate noticed something weird on my ass. Turns out the guy had drawn on me while I was asleep. A sailboat, a cat, and a rocket ship, all on my butt, all in highlighter. So definitely, you never know what's going to happen, but you definitely don't want to pass out. And you definitely don't want to, if you meet somebody for a quick encounter, it's probably not a good idea to sleep over. It's probably not a good idea to fall asleep with somebody that you don't know. While you're asleep, anything could happen. You could wake up in a pine box buried under the ground. You could not wake up ever again. There's just vetting's important, and not putting yourself in you're already putting yourself in a compromising situation. Don't put yourself in an absolutely dangerous situation. Quit trusting people. Stop trusting everyone. People don't deserve to be trusted until they earn your trust. Stop playing with your life. BDSM is risky enough, and sex comes with its own inherent risks as well. And you can mitigate some of those risks. You can't alleviate all of them, but mitigate some of these risks that are very life-threatening, and stop putting yourself in risky situations with people you haven't vetted, putting yourself in risky situations with people that you don't know, or you don't know enough about, or you haven't had some negotiations with. You haven't told them what you do and don't want, what is and isn't permissible. What this is what we're going to do, and this is only what we're going to do. You're just going all out for all this. Anything goes, and you're putting yourself in. If any risk can happen, any accident, any injury can take place. Stop trusting people. I'm Master Saturn, and stop trusting us. Check us out. Look up our resources. Listen to more than one podcast. Don't take our word for it just with one podcast. Listen to several of them. We have 260 of them. Hopefully, you can figure out whether we do or don't know what we're talking about, whether we're sharing things that are or are not profitable, or things that do or don't work. Check us out. We have, 260 podcasts and 12 years worth of content on Facebook in our page. You can go back, years and years and years. See if we know what we're talking about. Don't just trust us. I'm Master Saturn. Don't trust me. I'm Master Saturn. Sorry. You can find all of our BDSM and educational resources and whatnot at bdsmunited.com. You can find our uncensored little social page that we created for ourselves at mastersaturn.com. It was a joy speaking with you today, and I will talk with you again soon.